hands.
You refer regularly to Iran. Everybody knows your view about Iran, that they believe in the extermination of all things Israel.
It's not only that they believe it. Look at what they're doing now.
But I was going to flip it on its head and say, what are you doing about that, given that you know that is their position? I mean, rather than wait for other countries to intervene on your behalf, what is Israel actually doing right now to combat this incredibly serious threat?
Well, the first thing I've been trying to do for a long time, for about 15 years, I was elected first time 15 years ago, and I went to speak before the joint session of the U.S. Congress. And I said that the single greatest threat facing the world and my own country was the arming of Iran with nuclear weapons. And since then, what I've been trying to do is to alert the world and the leaders of the world that it's not merely our problem, that it's their problem. Because Iran today is in Afghanistan, it's in Iraq, it's gotten control of Lebanon, it's gotten control of half the Palestinian society.
Does it have nuclear weapons, do you think?
It's working to get them. It's in
How
the
close
Hornet.
do you think they are?
I think they're getting a lot closer.
Should they be transparent about their nuclear program?
Even to the extent that they are transparent, it's very clear what they're doing. They've enriched enough material now almost for 3 nuclear bombs. They still have to re-enrich it again, but that's what they're doing. They're building long-range CBMs, not only to reach us. ICBMs, they don't need that.
But what do you do about this country, which is apparently arming itself to the teeth, possibly getting nuclear weapons, and you're its #1 target? What are you doing about it?
Well, one of the things that we're telling people is that sanctions by themselves are not going to be enough. That the only thing that will work is if Iran knew that if sanctions fail, there'll be a credible military option. Now, this is not just our problem. This is the problem of Europe, of the United States.
So are you talking United Nations?
I'm talking about a credible military action that
Led by who?
Led preferably by the United States. It's not that complicated. It could be done. It's not easy, but it's not impossible.
What is credible military action against Iran? What does that constitute?
It means action that will knock out their nuclear facilities, and it's
But are you talking
eminently
airstrikes,
possible.
or could you contemplate some kind of land invasion?
Well, I think the United States has proven great effectiveness, and I'm going to divulge a secret to you about their capabilities. They're actually greater than ours. You know, I mean, the American Air Force and the American Army is bigger than,
If for whatever
than the Israeli
reason,
Army. And they're
but if for whatever reason the Americans choose not to do this, the threat still remains,
Yes.
and you're still the #1 target, would you act unilaterally, militarily?
No, we always reserve the right to defend ourselves. That's been one of the tragedies of Jewish history, that the Jewish people were thrust into a state of defenselessness. We were attacked again and again and again with viciousness and never had the capacity to defend ourselves.
Does Israel
We do now have that capacity.
Do you have nuclear weapons?
Well, we have a long-standing policy that we won't be the first to introduce nuclear weapons into the Middle East, and that hasn't changed.
So you don't have any?
That's our policy, not to be the first to introduce nuclear weapons into the Middle East.
But if you take an assumption that other countries may have them, then that may mean you have them.
Well, it may mean that we don't pose a threat to anyone. We don't call for anyone's annihilation. We don't foster terrorism. We don't threaten to obliterate countries with nuclear weapons, but we are threatened with all these threats. We have not fired thousands of rockets into our neighbors.
Is it right to expect countries like Iran to be transparent about their own nuclear programs if you're not transparent yourself?
Well, Iran is a signatory to the NPT. I mean, this is the absurd thing. Everybody says take the Non-Proliferation Treaty and expand it and bring Israel into it. No, the problem in the Middle East is not that other countries don't join it. It's that those countries who joined the Non-Proliferation Treaty have violated left and right, beginning with Iraq under Saddam Hussein, going on to Libya, Syria recently. They're all signatories to the NPT. They all developed nuclear weapons programs. Syria just did that and was exposed. And Iran is doing it every day. So they're all...
It's a bit of a sham, the
I think it's ridiculous. I think the problem in the Middle East is, one, that the signatories of the NPT violated, and secondly, that they're focusing their attention on Israel when the problem in the Middle East is this tyrannical medieval regime terrorist regime of Iran, in which the mullahs and the ayatollahs want nuclear weapons with which they openly threaten to wipe out, to make another Holocaust, to wipe out the Jewish state. But that's just for starters. They say that we're the small Satan, that the United States is the great Satan. And I suppose Europe, I don't want you to be offended, you're the sort of a middle-sized Satan. All of these have to be dominated, obliterated, terrorized, and they're actually true to their word. They say that we're the small Satan, that the United States is the great Satan. And I suppose Europe, I don't want you to be offended, you're the sort of a middle-sized Satan. All of these have to be dominated, obliterated, terrorized, and they're actually true to their word.
When we come back, I want to talk to you about the Middle East process here in relation to the Palestinians. Prime Minister, there was a horrific murder of the Fogel family last week, the details of which are chilling to read. What was your reaction to that, and where are you with the investigation into the perpetrators?
Well, this was horrific. It was savagery. I mean, several Palestinian terrorists came into a home of this Jewish family in the West Bank. They stabbed a 3-month-old baby girl in the heart, cut her throat. They stabbed her 4-year-old brother in the heart, cut him in the throat. They stabbed the father with another child and stabbed the mother and left them dying in their blood. And then I visited the family, and you saw the 12-year-old girl, a sister, who came home and saw this unbelievable massacre. So obviously the first response is sheer horror. And my second response was to send a message to the settlers to contain their rage and not respond, because we'd have a cycle of reprisals. So I asked them to not to take the law in their own hands, not to have vigilante actions, because this could generate a bloodbath. I thought that was important to stop that, but we're now looking for the killers. We'll find them.
There was, to put it mildly, a raised eyebrow collectively around the world, first at the horrifying nature of this attack, but secondly at your response. The premise of they murder, we build. You ordered the building of 500 more building settlements. It's a strange moral equivalence, Prime Minister. I mean, part of the problem that you face now in Israel is perception around the world. Your PR is not good, as you know. When people heard about what happened, I think the international community completely on your side, and the people of Israel. When they see you immediately ordering more settlements, I'm sure you did it to calm down the people, as you say, a lot of that sympathy erodes. People think, come on, there's got to be a better way of responding to this kind of thing than doing that.
Well, I wanted to send 3 messages. The first one I told you about, that is a message of restraint to the settlers. The second is a message to the terrorists. And I was telling them, I know you think you're going to uproot us with this savagery, with violence, with terror. You're not going to uproot us. So you kill us, you want to drive us into the sea, that's not going to happen. The only way we'll have a settlement is through peaceful negotiations. So you kill, we'll build, but coincidentally I chose to build in the large populated areas that are going to stay in Israel anyway. And not 500 new settlements, but 500 apartments, which is very different. And third, I wanted to send a message to the international community. And I said to the international community that rushes to condemn Israel for every building that is built. You know, a Jew builds an apartment in the Jewish homeland. What a terrible crime. But they seldom go and condemn this kind of savagery without any ands, ifs, and buts. And I wanted that condemnation. I was glad to see.
But is that true?
I was glad to see some.
Is that true? I mean, does the international community really not just condemn that kind of outrage out of hand? Because I read that they did. And the point about the settlements is surely that you are trying to get a peace process that works. You're trying to get to some settlement. You know, the Middle East Quartet only yesterday said they've almost given up hope that peace is achievable at the moment. You were the first Prime Minister of Israel to be born after 48. You have a key position in history here. You've been Prime Minister before. You didn't get the peace process through then. You've got another chance now. Doesn't part of you, Benjamin Netanyahu, look at yourself and think, I want to be the guy that makes this happen, not the guy that didn't make it happen?
7 prime ministers have tried to get peace with the Palestinians since the peace process began in Oslo in 1993. Some of them made extraordinarily generous concessions, and it didn't work because the Palestinians, first under Arafat and now under Abu Mazen, have not picked it up. They refused to go the distance and actually recognize the Jewish state and make the compromises that are required from both sides. The entire world is focusing on the compromises that are necessary from Israel's side. And I'm prepared to make a lot of those compromises for peace. But they're not focusing on the fact that the Palestinians refuse to make the necessary compromises that are required on their side for peace. And the simplest thing to do, you know, here you're talking about moving the peace process forward. What do you think is the best way to arrive at a negotiated settlement?
Honestly, what do I think?
Yeah.
When Sadat came to Jerusalem bearing concessions, it worked. Why don't you go to Ramallah and be the big guy here? Why don't you go and take concessions, which are perhaps more than you're prepared to give right now, and say, I'm calling the bluff here, not just of the Palestinians, but of the international community? Because I'll tell you what would happen. The international community is desperate for this to work. They would come with you. And yes, there would be, of course, problems. Yes, there would be more outrages. Everybody knows that. But in the end, somebody has to be the big guy here, and that could be you, couldn't it?
I'm pretty big.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
You are. When we come back from the break, I want to talk to you more about this peace process.
At AA. This is where you find.
You want to make peace? Suggested the simplest.
Doesn't history need people to be courageous?
Yes, it does. But peace requires 2 to tango. And what I said, suggested the simplest thing, is exactly what you're saying. I said to Abu Mazen, flying around in the world, the Palestinian president, I said, don't fly around the world. You want to make peace? Ramallah, where you sit, is 10 minutes away from Jerusalem, where we're sitting right now. I'm willing to come to you. You can come here. Let's sit down, shut the room, you know, basically, and sit down until smoke comes out. That's the way you make peace. That's how we made peace with Egypt. That's how we made peace with Jordan.
Why isn't it happening?
Because I think that Palestinian society is split into 2. Those who are openly calling for Israel's destruction, like Hamas, and those who are not calling openly for Israel's destruction, but refuse to confront those who do. And that's the Palestinian Authority. I think they're timid. I think they're afraid to actually stand up to these killers. I think it's possible to achieve that peace. I'll tell you what, I've always wanted it, because I went through war. I went through war in Egypt. I nearly drowned in the Suez Canal in a firefight during the War of Attrition.
You were shot yourself.
Yeah, I was shot rescuing a hijacker.
So you know the reality of war.
I've lost...
They always say military people that have been through that kind of thing, who've seen friends, colleagues get killed, they understand better than most the need to bring peace.
Not only understand, but cherish it. I mean, I nearly died several times in firefights. I had a brother lost in a battle. I had many friends lost. I mean, one of the experience that I remember was as an 18-year-old soldier, just a few short weeks after entering the army, holding a friend who died in my arms. You don't want war. We want peace more than any other people. We pray for peace, yearn for peace, dream about peace. I want to make sure that the peace holds. And one of the things that I've said, in this part of the world, the only peace that would hold is a peace you can defend. So I'm willing to make that kind of peace, a peace with security.
What's the concession you're prepared to make this happen? Because you know if you don't make one, if you don't do something dramatic here, nothing's going to happen. You'll go down as a guy who was Prime Minister twice, and it never happened.